Thanks, Steve. I'm going to sneak out on this side of the podium a little bit. And thanks for sticking around. Appreciate it. Sorry I've got a raspy voice today. Wish I had some better explanation like I was cheering on the Packers in the Super Bowl or something like that, but that would have been a few years back, and it was just a raspy voice, but it's a good chance to join with you today. It's good to be back. Steve, thanks for your leadership both here and many times down in the Capitol. Probably like a lot of you here, where Steve and I will see each other in a couple weeks, as well as at our annual conference on tourism. I'm touch on tourism in a moment, but really want to talk about a couple key areas. And I know you've had some discussions today already with some of our administration, from transportation, workforce development, certainly some talk about broadband. This is a great conference when you think about it, because the quality of some of the folks you've had here, I think, would be parallel to a statewide conference down in our state's capital. So I think that's a great reflection of how important this region is to the state as a whole, and how important it is to the state's economy. First off, when you think about the economy, and it's pretty parallel, for example, right here in Monroe County, the unemployment rate in this state the last couple of months has hovered around 4.2, 4.3%, depending on the month. Put that in perspective, when I was first running for governor in 2010, the beginning of that year, the unemployment rate was 9.2%. Last few months, it's been down to 4.2, 4.3%, depending on the month. And so if you think about that, that's pretty remarkable. And certainly your efforts and those that you represent from across this county, across this region, have gone a long ways. It's also important, though, because a lot of times nationally we talk about unemployment, and the national unemployment rate's gone down, which is good. But unfortunately, the percentage of people in the workforce, which economists typically call the labor force participation rate, is low nationally. It's about just over 62%. It's about as low as it's been since the 1970s. The good news in our state is it's about 68%. What's actually exactly 68%. That makes us one of the top 10 states in the entire country. Why that's important is it means not only is unemployment down, but it's not down because people have left the workforce and given up. It's down because more people are working. In fact, if you look at the numbers last year for the U.S. Department of Labor, the federal government's own numbers, and you look at where we stand according to what's called CES, the current employment statistics, last year in 2015, we had more people working in the state than we've had at just about any time in the last 20 years and beyond. And so, yeah, that's worth clapping for. That's good news, but the challenge for all of us who care about economic development now is a little bit different than it was a few years ago. 5, 6, 7 years ago, it was all about jobs, jobs, jobs. Now it's about where do we find the people to fill those jobs. And I want to touch on that for a few moments. I know you've had some discussions already about workforce development, but I want to add to that as well, because really, workforce and career development increasingly is more than just that. It's economic development. Because I can't tell you how many times I've heard it. There's not a week that goes by that I don't hear it from some employer in this state who will say, I got these 4 or 5 positions open, and not only can I fill them, I can't fill them with people to fill where it's a welder, machinist, fabricator, IT tech, certified nursing assistant. They'll tell me I've got these positions open, but I can't fill them, and until I fill them, I can't add more work on top of it, because I'm not going to risk the work I already have to take on more work if I can't fill the positions I already have today. And so I call it economic development, because we need to show our employers that are here, big and small alike, as well as others we'd like to attract here to the state, to this region, that we've got a well-trained, well-prepared workforce that's ready to step and fill in. And so I think workforce development is the #1 issue when it comes to economic development here across the state, I think actually across the country and increasingly around the world. And so it's important for us to focus on that. And it's only going to get more important. Because think about it, I was at a manufacturing conference this morning. When you think of the median age of people in manufacturing, it's pretty high. You look similarly at agriculture in this state, you look at the average age of people farming, it's pretty high compared to the average age of other positions in the state. And so when you look at some of our key industries in manufacturing and agriculture in this state, that means in the next 5 to 7 years in particular, as more and more baby boomers are at or near retirement age, there's going to be an even bigger wave of retirements, and we need to be able to fill them. And it's not just about filling those positions, it's filling with the same or even better qualified workers than we have right there, right now. So much of our challenge in these key industry areas in our state is how do we fill those with people who match the expertise that those employers are seeing in the state. Now, some people view that as a challenge, as a negative. I view it as a great opportunity, because if we get this right, if we're ahead of the curve compared to other states throughout the Midwest, across the country, and around the world, we will be the premier place not only to do business, but to come in and do business as well. Because people all around the world are looking for where are the places where we can find good employees to run our business with, to grow our business with. And that should be Wisconsin. There's a couple of things we're doing. One, we're starting early. And I say we because the legislature's helping us. I saw Lee on the way in. I see Nancy here. I see others. I haven't seen if Sarah Lass is here yet, but we work with the legislature on these issues, particularly workforce issues. They're not Democrat or Republican. They're pretty much across the board issues, because a job's a job and higher wages are important to all of us. But we started out early. We started out right away right now with 25 pilot programs. We put money in the budget to do it after that in every school district in the state, to do academic and career plans as early as 6th grade. So we get young people to start thinking about, what am I good at? What am I interested in? What kind of career paths are out there? Then we take it the next step, so it starts getting them ready to go to take courses in junior high, and particularly in high school. We have dual enrollment in many of our school districts. We just shifted more money last month in what's called Wisconsin Fast Forward into dual enrollment grants to help even more high schools do dual enrollment. What that is, for those who aren't familiar, it's having our high schools or public high schools work with our technical colleges, so they're offering courses that students can get credit not only to graduate from high school in, but then get credit at whether it's Western or any of the 15 other great technical colleges in the state. It gives them a head start. A head start, whether it's for an associate degree in one of our technical colleges, whether it's taking some of those credits and going to, maybe it's the University of Wisconsin, one of our great campuses, or to another private college or university. It gives our students a head start. It also actually helps them with the cost of education. I've got 2 sons in college, Matt and Alex, myself, so I can relate to this. I appreciate the fact that we've frozen tuition for the first time ever 4 years in a row, but giving a student in high school a chance to get enough credits to have a semester or a year head start on the other students, whether it's at an undergraduate university or whether it's at a 2-year technical college for an associate degree, that's an incredible deal. Because I don't care what the interest rate is on student loan, I'd love to have it lower. I'd love that the feds push it down. But whether it's 6 or 4 or 2 or 0%, if you owe $30 or $40 or $50,000, that's a whale of a lot of money for someone coming right out of school to pay for. Why not keep the cost down in the first place? Make it more affordable to begin with. Plus, it gets them in the workforce sooner. If you give them a year head start, whether they were going to an associate degree, which typically takes 2 years, or whether or not it's an undergraduate degree, if it takes 4 years, either case, getting there a year sooner reduces the cost. It reduces the burden on the taxpayers who help to subsidize each of those institutions. And equally as important, it helps all of you as employers who are looking for people to hire. So we're trying to do all those things. And we're trying to help offer as many different pathways towards careers. When I was running for re-election as your governor a couple of years ago, I used to say that everyone who wants a job should be able to find a job. I'd adjust that now and say everyone who wants a career should be able to find a career. Because it's not just about a job. What we want to do is help people get the skills and the education and the qualifications they need to succeed in life, no matter what their career path. So whether our students and those looking to re-enter the workforce are going through an apprenticeship program, and I'm happy to say over the last 4 years, apprenticeships have doubled over the past 4 years for youth. Our youth apprenticeships, our adult apprenticeships are up about 30%. There's tremendous opportunities there for careers that require an apprenticeship path. We see a dynamic shift in terms of new resources we put into our technical colleges. I'm pleased with our funding for the Blueprint for Prosperity. We've added over 5,000 more spots in our 16 technical colleges across the state. The legislature just passed in the Assembly, I know it's pending in the state Senate, a series of things, one in particular which the Wisconsin grant proposal would add enough funding for 1,000 more on top of that. Why? Because increasingly the industries that are growing need more people with associate degrees, whether it's in the various aspects of manufacturing, in information technology, certainly in key areas in healthcare across the state. And so we want to make sure we can fill that. We're doing more now to work with the UW system, not only have dual enrollment, but also to have a parallel with course options. Again, so students can get credit early on and take a semester, a year off the cost of higher education at the UW. We're trying to make sure there's many different options as possible out there. But it's not just in terms of traditional pathways, too. We're doing a couple other things. We're trying to make sure that we can help get anybody else who's on the sideline, off of the sideline, into the game. A couple key things. One, a number of you here, Colonel, and others, you'll appreciate this. We put an aggressive effort on a couple years ago, and we continue it this year, to help employers hire more of our returning veterans. Now, that's just a good thing to do in general. That's a good thing to do for obvious patriotic reasons, but there's two very practical reasons for employers as well. One, any veteran, but particularly a man or woman who's just returned the last couple of years from being deployed, has got incredible skills, discipline, focus, attention, loyalty. It's a good business sense to hire someone like that because they're ready to go. They're ready to go. And secondly, because we fully restored the Wisconsin GI Bill a few years ago, you can hire a veteran, and I've been pleased in our listening sessions across the state to listen and hear from a great many members of the Guard and the Reserve, particularly in the state, who've come back and have taken advantage of the Wisconsin GI Bill, because you can hire them and they can go back to school if you want them to advance in your organization, and they don't pay a thing. They don't pay a thing to go to any of our public higher education institutions. So think about what a bargain you get for someone you want to advance in your organization. It's a great deal all the way around. We made a focus, this is a few years ago, when nationally the unemployment rate for our veterans was about double, in some cases almost triple, the national unemployment rate. The last 2 years, we've seen such a drop that last year alone, our average unemployment rate for veterans in this state was about 3.6%. That is below the state rate, well below the national rate. I'm proud to say that we have one of the lowest unemployment rates for veterans in the country, in the state of Wisconsin, but we're not going to stop till every man and every woman who served our country, particularly who put their life on the line the last couple of years, can come back and find a job no matter what it is they want to do. So that's one area. Secondly, we've been working quite extensively to help employers, many in this region, to help find the abilities that people have who are otherwise identified as having a disability. What I mean, either a physical or an intellectual disability. And I'll give you a good example of this. One of the programs we do, we've dramatically increased since I've been your governor. It's called Project Search. In fact, I was not too long ago, a little bit over down the way in Wisconsin Rapids. We were at one of our newest sites, a hospital there that became one of our project sites. We keep growing and adding, and our goal is by next year to have 27 sites. When I started, we just had a couple. But Project Search sites are sites like hospitals and other employers that do a year-long program for high school-age students who have a disability. And they help them work through internships in different parts of that organization and get them a feel for getting in the workforce. And what piqued my interest was, first year I was your governor, I was down at UW Hospital in Madison. And I was meeting some of these young people who were part of this program. And one person in particular still sticks in my mind 5 years later. She was a young woman who had acute autism, who found her niche in the area of the hospital where they sterilize surgical equipment. Now, anybody who knows anything about autism, particularly in its acute level, somebody in that condition, male or female, what they want is repetition. That's what gives them comfort. That's part of the condition. This young woman, my son, was viewed as having a disability. If you're a hospital healthcare provider, one of the areas where you have to have something done exactly right, the same way, every time, all the time, every day, is sterilizing surgical equipment. There's no margin for error. If you screw that up, somebody gets sick, worst case, somebody dies, you can't do that. This young woman takes pride and joy and comfort in doing things the same way all the time. So what they did is they found the ability that she had and applied it to something they needed done. And so accommodations either for physical or sometimes intellectual disabilities are things we can help out with. And I'm pleased that our State Division of Vocational Rehabilitation, DVR, last year helped place more people with disabilities into vocational positions than they had at any time in the last 15 years. Again, we need to get more people off the sidelines and into the game. The last example I'll give you is in addition to all of those, we've got to make sure that for those who are able to work but facing difficult times, we find a way to get them in the game as well. I'm pleased to report to you that in this state now, we're one of the few that can say this, but in Wisconsin, if someone is an adult who is able to work and does not have children in the household, they can only get public assistance if they're enrolled in one of our job training programs and if they are plugged in through our state agency, Workforce Development, to look for work 5 times a week. Now, when we first brought this up down in Madison, you can imagine there were some that said, oh my gosh, you can't do that. You're making it harder to get government assistance. I said, no, we're not. We're making it easier to get a job. Easier to get a job. That's really what it's all about. For me, I think about, it's more than just a paycheck. It's that dignity that comes from work. Probably like a lot of you here, I can still remember the first jobs I had when I was a kid. I used to wash dishes at the Countryside Restaurant, small little town I grew up in, right on the county line. And then in high school, I moved up. I started flipping hamburgers at McDonald's. I'll tell you a funny story. My friend of mine lived about 15 miles down the road. You may have heard of him before, a guy by the name of Paul Ryan. Paul was in Janesville. I was in Delavan. We both worked at McDonald's. The only difference is his manager told him he had to flip hamburgers in the back because he didn't have the interpersonal skills to work the front cash register. I half wondered last month when the president was giving the State of the Union and there sat Paul, what that manager was thinking about that time, wondering what was in his head. But for people like Paul and I imagine a lot of you can think about your own stories of your first jobs, or for me and Tonette, our 2 sons, Matt worked at a pizza place, Alex worked at a custard stand. I used to have friends of mine say, hey, your kids are in sports, they're in scouts, they're in extracurricular, why are you making them work? They don't need the money. So, well, I like them not digging in my wallet. But I said the real reason I made them work is because there's something important about understanding the value of hard work. And all too often in society, that's kind of been lost. And I know there's a lot of, and I'll give people the benefit of the doubt, I know there's a lot of people in the past in our state capital, and probably even more today in our nation's capital, who mean well, who really do want to help and support people. But I said sometimes if we give people assistance without asking for something in return, we're not helping them out. We're doomed them to a lifetime of dependency. And that's not who we are as humans. I don't know about all you, but small town I grew up in, nobody in my class signed my yearbook saying, Scott, good luck becoming dependent in the government. That's just not what we do. My dad was a preacher at a small town church, and I remember plenty of times there were people who came to my church and asked my dad for help, and we'd give it to them. But if they were able, my dad usually asked for something in return. Might be sweeping out the fellowship hall or taking out the garbage or painting the back door or something out there, because if they were able, there should be something in return to say, we'll help you out, but we expect you to do something for that. For too long, we haven't done that in the society. And so we're changing that. One of the great stories I love of late is, there are many like this, but a young woman, she happened to be from Anago, last year through this program, got signed up, named Jessica. Jessica, within a month or so, got a job. She was a housekeeper at a local hotel. About 2 months later, she moved up and got a job at the mill outside of town in Anago, working well there. And then as she was going through this program we have, she met, in this case, it was another technical college. It was North Central Technical College. She met someone that came to talk at one of her job clubs. And in the process, this person told her about a program they had to get more people in to be trained as certified nursing assistants. Well, January 8th, she got her certificate to be a CNA. And so one of the great joys I have in telling that story was Jessica told our team it wasn't just that she got a job, What was the most powerful for her was throughout her life, people told her what she couldn't do, told her she wasn't going to amount to much, told her she was destined to be on public assistance and live a life of dependency on the government. And we said no. We didn't just say, no, we're going to cut you off. We said, no, we expect if you want help, you got to do something for that. We don't just expect it. We believe you can do something for that. We believe you are capable, and we're going to give you the help and the support. And one of the great things about that story is she said for the first time in her life, she actually felt proud that she could do something, that she could achieve something. She could take control of her life and set her own destiny. That's important most of all for the Jessicas of the world, not just her, but for all the others like that in this state. So we're helping her out at the same time. We're helping all of you and other employers who are looking for workers, because we're at a state where our age is getting, our median age is going up. And so to fill those jobs, not just now, but the jobs in the next 5, 6, 7 years that are going to be open, we can't afford to have anybody sitting on the sideline. We got to get every player in the game. Some are going to need a little bit more help, and we're willing to do it. But we'll give people the job skills and in other categories. If people are suffering from drug dependency, we'll help them get clean of that, get them back in the game. We just cannot afford to have people on the sidelines who are capable and willing to work or interested in working in this state, and that'll help us grow the economy. Because the biggest barrier right now is not a credit or tax. I mean, there's all sorts of good things we've done. You know, we put in place the manufacturing and agricultural tax credit that helped two of our biggest industries. That's been tremendous. Property income taxes today are lower than when we first took office. We've reined in the out-of-control regulations that we saw in the state to make sure we still have clean air, clean land, and clean water, but to do it in a way that's responsible and reasonable based on common sense, not just on bureaucratic red tape, and to provide long-term stability. Again, the legislature helped pass a change in the administrative rules so that long after I'm here and others in the legislature who are here today are gone, you'll have that long-term stability to make sure that sort of sanity continues. And we helped rein in frivolous and out-of-control lawsuits. But in the end, those are all good things to improve the business climate, but you still got to have access to workforce. And you still got to have, as you talked about before, a strong infrastructure system, which includes transportation, roads, highways, bridges, freight rail, ports, airports, all those sorts of things, and includes other forms of infrastructure. You talked about it, broadband. I'm happy this last budget we tripled the amount of money we put into broadband to help build the fiber network all throughout the state of Wisconsin. We're going to put even more in the future. We want to make sure that every part of the state has access to a fiber network so you can get access to internet, high-speed internet hookup, knowing you can do business anywhere in the world, but that's one of the key requirements. It's also not only important for manufacturing and agriculture and other key industries, it's increasingly important for tourism. Because as much as people say they want to go somewhere to get away, how many people have you seen at attractions, you know, sitting out in the summer by the side of the lake or the river with an iPad or a phone sitting there watching? They may want to get away, but they don't completely get away. And so you got to have access to that. You know, I'm pleased with our investments in tourism in this state. We've seen in the last 4 years a 25% increase in the economic impact of tourism in Wisconsin. Manufacturing, agriculture, tourism, those are key components in the state. We've got to have the infrastructure, the backbone to do that. We've got it with a strong workforce. We've got it with good transportation. We've got it with, we're going to increasingly do it, make sure that internet access is improved upon so that broadband, high-speed internet connections are available. We want to make sure we continue to have access to clean and accessible water. And we want to make sure that as we look at all these other things, I consider healthcare to be an infrastructure asset as well, because if you have quality to a good healthcare system in the state, region by region, community by community, county by county, all those things are about what employers look at when they decide not only where to come in the first place, but where to grow into. And you've done a tremendous job here. This conference has been a great session along the way. I appreciate not only Steve's work to lead, not just on this event, but on the efforts here. We've actually blended some of those areas today with agritourism and that you've done before. I still have my stickers from that, Steve. You'll be happy to know along the way. But we've got to think in a new way and really look at things differently. You know, it used to be economic development was about putting a few incentives on the table and having an industrial park. And those are all good things, but really right now it really boils down to workforce. The number one decision for most employers about where they're going to be and where they're going to grow is whether or not they have access to a good workforce. That's an issue all around the world, and we're going to be at the forefront of making that happen. So we appreciate that.